Srebrenica, designated by the United Nations a safe haven in April 1993. It was turned into a burial site in a matter of days when thousands of Muslim men and boys were massacred at the hands of the Bosnian Serb army. This past July, tens of thousands of people, along with the world's media, poured into the memorial site to remember the worst atrocity on European soil since World War II. And Srebrenica is one of those subjects the Bosnian media still find difficult to cover. The ceasefire declared 20 years ago seems to have done little to affect the coverage on the airwaves and in the newspapers.
In Bosnia and Herzegovina, the war is not over. We've stopped conducting it using weapons, but we're continuing it on other platforms, especially the media. Srebrenica is reported today the same way it was reported 20 years ago. You have the same sentence structure, the same visual conceits, the same soundbite.
Srebrenica.
It's pretty tedious that all these years on we haven't managed to report Srebrenica differently.
There was some progress made in media in Bosnia and Herzegovina. 15 years ago, media in Republika Srpska would cover only the events where the Serbs were the victims. This year, for the first time, every single outlet, newspaper, every single media in Bosnia and Herzegovina finally covered Srebrenica.
It's important to understand exactly who everybody refers to. We interviewed 5 different journalists for this story. The editor-in-chief of Federal State Television based in the country's capital, a Bosnian Croat who edits a newspaper in Mostar, the editor of a web portal working in Republika Srpska, a journalist and media analyst from Sarajevo, and a Bosnian Serb newspaper editor based in Banja Luka. Different backgrounds, different perspectives on the same story, and with that comes different terminology.
The media in Republika Srpska don't use the word genocide, whereas in the Federation it's often overemphasized.
20 godina od genocida u Srebrenici.
At times it felt like the word genocide is mentioned in every sentence.
Srebrenici desio genocid.
Whilst it wasn't heard in Republika Srpska.
Reporting is divided along ethnic lines. Given the population in the Federation is predominantly made up of Bosniak Muslims, the media coverage was very thorough. The newspaper, the Dnevni Avaz, published a 200-page special. They had everything that was related to Srebrenica. The media in Republika Srpska also reported on the event. If you saw the newspaper Nezavisne Novine, we had a black and white front page which we dedicated exclusively to the events of that day. You have to understand that there are significant differences between the two entities. The war in Bosnia and Herzegovina is over, but tension still persists.
When it comes to covering sensitive topics, the media serving the 3 main ethnic groups, Bosnian Muslim, Bosnian Serb, and Bosnian Croat, remain divided, often covering the same stories differently. But we've spoken to analysts across all 3 communities, and they say that the issues affecting journalism here go well beyond interpretations of the past, such as the Srebrenica story. The larger problem, they say, are the politics of the present.
Fahrudin Radoncic is the owner of the country's most widely read daily newspaper, Dnevni Avaz. He's also the president of a major political party and Bosnia's former security minister. And Radoncic is just one example of an influential figure with one foot in politics, the other in media, and the potential to affect news coverage.
He's a politician, he has his media, basically. He has a TV, he has like everything. Second good example is maybe from Republika Srpska, where media are receiving help from the government directly, and they're completely writing, many of the media, and what you read in these media is like literally what these politicians from the biggest party in that part of the country, so SNSD, are telling.
Politicians, businessmen, they call, they threat, they sue me, and it exhausts you completely. They just do not come to my show. They would go to some other media to give the interviews or to be in the debates where the journalist is softer.
Vi ste, evo, prije 5 godina počeli pričati o ekonomiji dok su drugi pričali o nacionalizmu.
ready to make the compromises, raise the issues which the politicians like.
It's a similar story on the Serbian side in Banja Luka. 2 years ago, the National Assembly of Republika Srpska adopted legislation allowing for the public broadcaster RTRS to be financed directly through the government, contravening the law that public broadcasters can only be financed through taxes or advertising revenue, and exposing the channel to potential editorial manipulation. This cosy relationship is symbolized by the proximity between state and studio. On one side of the building you have the state headquarters of Republika Srpska. On the other, the studios of the state-owned broadcaster, RTRS.
Radio Televizija Republika Srpska is a typical example of a public service in Bosnia and Herzegovina that has supported the ruling political party from the moment of its conception. Public services were the first to succumb to political pressure. They became political puppets, creating an environment that made it very difficult for private media to stay independent in the economic market, in turn making it uncomfortable for any outlet to publish a story which criticizes those who make it possible for them to publish in the first place.
I work as an executive editor and we criticize the current Croatian ruling party every day. That is our job, but as a result of our reporting, we often face the loss of subscriptions, the loss of advertising, and even physical threats. The government control jobs, they control employment, they control people's lives.
The governments born in the aftermath of the Bosnian War were control-hungry. But it's been almost 2 decades since the Dayton Peace Accord officially brought the war to an end. A pretty long time for any government to be using political instability as an argument for control. In times like these, the media often trot out truisms about failing to learn lessons from the past. But that doesn't seem to be the case in Bosnia and Herzegovina, at least not at the political level.
The local politicians, current politicians, they learn a lot from the past. They learn how to use the media as their propaganda tools. And they learn that lesson very well. I think that they all have PhD in political propaganda. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that the public learned the lesson from the war. And I'm not sure that they learn how to recognize political propaganda in every occasion.